Before Jennifer Kesse became the center of one of Florida's most baffling unsolved cases, she was a young woman with a life full of promise. Born and raised in Tampa, Florida, Jennifer was the kind of person who exuded responsibility, drive, and care for those around her. Family and friends described her as diligent, reliable, and inherently cautious, someone who made thoughtful decisions and maintained strong routines. She had a meticulous nature, from her finances to her daily habits, and she took pride in her independence. Her life was structured, organized, and to those who knew her, perfectly ordinary. Jennifer's academic achievements reflected her determination. She graduated from the University of Central Florida with a degree in finance, a field she loved for its challenges and opportunities. Her education quickly translated into a growing career. She became a finance manager at Central Florida Investments Timeshare Company, a position that demonstrated both competence and ambition. Just prior to her disappearance, she had recently been promoted, signaling that her professional trajectory was strong and steadily ascending. At the same time, Jennifer had achieved a milestone many young adults aspire to. She purchased her own condominium at the Mosaic at Millennia Complex in Orlando. For Jennifer, this wasn't just a home. It was a symbol of independence, security, and the life she had carefully built for herself. Her condo reflected her attention to detail, from its organized interior to the care she took with her surroundings. Every part of her life, from her work to her home, displayed an unmistakable sense of responsibility. Jennifer was also in a long-term relationship with her boyfriend, Rob Allen, who lived and worked in Fort Lauderdale. Despite the distance, the couple maintained constant communication, often calling each other multiple times throughout the day. They shared plans for the future and maintained a deep connection that reflected Jennifer's commitment not just to her career and personal independence, but to the people she loved. Her family recalled that, in the days before her disappearance, Jennifer was really happy, excited about the future, and content with her life. Her careful routines extended to her personal safety. As a young woman living alone, Jennifer made it a habit to check in constantly with her family. She would call her parents, Drew and Joyce, every day on her way to and from work, and often spoke to friends during her walks to her car. It was a ritual she followed without fail, a reflection of her cautious and thoughtful nature. She would lock doors, monitor her surroundings, and ensure that someone always knew where she was. This diligence would make her sudden disappearance even more chilling. Understanding Jennifer Kesse as a person is crucial to grasping why the events of January 24th, 2006 are so confounding. This was not someone who would simply vanish on her own. Her life was filled with structure, love, and ambition. She had a stable job, a new home, supportive family and friends, and a relationship that was strong and trusting. Her disappearance was not the result of carelessness or spontaneous decisions. It was an abrupt, unexplained interruption to a life that was full, intentional, and carefully navigated. Jennifer's personality, habits, and circumstances set the stage for the mystery that would grip Central Florida. By understanding who she was, her routine, and the world she inhabited, the chilling reality of what followed becomes clearer. A young woman at the peak of her independence, with a future full of promise, vanished without a trace, leaving behind only questions and a trail that investigators would struggle to follow for years to come. The days leading up to Jennifer Kesse's disappearance seemed ordinary, filled with routine and the quiet rhythms of her life. On Sunday, January 22nd, 2006, Jennifer returned to Orlando from a vacation in St. Croix with her boyfriend, Rob Allen. It had been a brief getaway, warm and sunny, a pause from their busy lives. Rob dropped her off at her condominium and then made the 2.5-hour drive back to his home in Fort Lauderdale. To anyone observing, it was a typical return from a weekend trip, uneventful, familiar, and normal. Monday, January 23rd, began like any other workday. Jennifer returned to the office, resuming her role as a finance manager. She left work around 6 o'clock in the evening, and as was her habit, called her parents for a brief check-in. Later, she spoke with a friend, and around 10 o'clock that night, had her last known conversation with Rob. Everything seemed ordinary, her voice cheerful and her tone calm. There were no hints of danger, no indication that the following day would become the nightmare it did. Tuesday, January the 24th, 2006, began as a normal morning. Evidence inside her condo, clothes neatly laid out, a wet towel by the shower, her pajamas on the floor, indicated that Jennifer had followed her usual routine, showering, dressing, and preparing for work. Investigators later inferred that she left her condominium in the Mosaic at Millennia Complex around 8 o'clock in the morning, locking the door behind her and heading toward her 2004 black Chevrolet Malibu parked in the lot. This would be the last moment anyone saw her in her routine environment. By 8 o'clock, Rob attempted to call Jennifer, as he did every morning during their long-distance relationship. The call went straight to voicemail. He tried again later, but there was still no answer. Initially, he did not panic, assuming she might be caught up in a meeting or delayed by her commute. However, by 11 o'clock, concern escalated sharply when Jennifer's employer called her parents. She had not shown up for work, nor had she contacted anyone. Her parents, Drew and Joyce Kesse, immediately called her, and for the first time reached only her voicemail. The alarm bells rang. Something was wrong. The Kesse family raced from Tampa to Orlando, joined later by her brother, Logan, and Rob. The journey was tense, filled with growing dread, each mile deepening the sense of urgency. When they arrived at Jennifer's condominium between 3 and 3:15 in the afternoon, the scene defied expectation. The condo itself was untouched, immaculate, as if she had never left. But Jennifer was gone, her black Chevrolet Malibu, purse, keys, both her work and personal cell phones and iPod were all missing. The disappearance was complete, leaving no physical trace behind in her home. In the hours that followed, the family began an immediate search. Initially fearing an accident, they called local hospitals and checked police records. When nothing surfaced, they printed flyers with Jennifer's photo, distributing them throughout the Mosaic complex and surrounding neighborhoods. Between 5 and 7 o'clock, the disappearance was formally reported to the Orlando Police Department. What began as a seemingly ordinary Tuesday had transformed into the first chapter of a case that would captivate Central Florida and eventually the entire nation for years to come. The meticulousness of Jennifer's morning routine, her consistent communication habits, and the completeness of her disappearance added an unsettling layer to the case. Nothing inside the condo suggested she left voluntarily. There were no signs of a struggle indoors, no indication she had been planning to go somewhere without notifying anyone. Her disappearance was sudden, deliberate, and terrifyingly precise. A dark puzzle that would confound investigators for nearly 2 decades. As evening fell on Tuesday, January 24th, 2006, the disappearance of Jennifer Kesse shifted from a personal crisis to an official police investigation. When Drew and Joyce Kesse contacted the Orlando Police Department, they were met with a response that, in hindsight, would be one of the first frustrations of a long and complicated case. An officer was dispatched to the Mosaic at Millennia condominium complex, but the assessment was brief and, according to the family, dismissive. The suggestion that Jennifer might have had a disagreement with her boyfriend and would soon return was a devastating blow to the family, who knew her reliability and meticulous habits too well to believe it. Critical early minutes were lost. Because Jennifer was a 24-year-old adult with no immediate evidence of foul play, the condo was not treated as a secured crime scene. In the chaotic hours that followed, at least 14 people, family, friends, and building staff, entered the unit, inadvertently contaminating any potential forensic evidence. Investigators would later acknowledge that this unintentional disruption may have destroyed fingerprints or other trace evidence that could have identified an intruder. Undeterred, The Kesse family immediately took matters into their own hands. Jennifer's condominium was transformed into a temporary command center. With the help of Rob Allen, Logan Kesse, and a growing network of friends and volunteers, they organized a methodical search of the surrounding area. Residents and neighbors joined in, scouring wooded areas, parking lots, and nearby roads. Helicopters circled overhead, while volunteers on foot, horseback, and ATVs combed the dense Central Florida landscape. Every corner of the complex and its surroundings became a potential clue in the frantic hunt for Jennifer. Media coverage quickly amplified the urgency of the case. Local news outlets broadcast Jennifer's smiling photographs, alongside updates on her disappearance, emphasizing the contrast between her vibrant personality and the grim reality of her vanishing. Interviews with the Kesse family, particularly Drew, painted a picture of desperation and relentless determination. Their emotional appeals highlighted both the urgency of finding Jennifer and the frustration with initial police responses. By the second day, law enforcement intensified efforts. Investigators began official interviews with those closest to Jennifer, including Rob Allen and a former boyfriend, both of whom were eventually cleared of suspicion. Law enforcement also faced the challenge of canvassing the Mosaic at Millennia complex, which at the time was partially under construction. The mix of temporary construction workers, some living in vacant units, and permanent residents complicated the investigation. Several female residents had previously reported harassment or unwanted attention from some laborers, creating a difficult environment in which to identify credible witnesses. Despite the extensive efforts, the first 48 hours yielded little more than anxiety and uncertainty. Jennifer remained missing, and the initial leads were sparse. The central question weighed heavily on everyone involved. Where could she have gone, and who might have taken her? The breakthrough came on Thursday, January 26, 2006, when a tip led police to a black 2004 Chevrolet Malibu parked at the Huntington on the Green apartment complex, roughly 1.2 miles from Jennifer's home. This discovery, the first tangible evidence of her disappearance outside the condo, would pivot the investigation and introduce the first physical clue: the car itself. This early phase of the investigation highlights both the challenges of missing person cases and the crucial role of family advocacy. The combination of initial procedural missteps, environmental complexity, and community involvement set the stage for a case that would grow increasingly mysterious and deeply compelling. On the morning of Thursday, January 26th, 2006, roughly 48 hours after Jennifer Kesse vanished, the investigation took a dramatic turn. A resident at the Huntington on the Green condominium complex, located just over a mile from Jennifer's home in Orlando, noticed a black 2004 Chevrolet Malibu parked strangely in a lot reserved for residents. The car had been stationary for a couple of days, and the tip to police would soon become the first tangible lead in a case that had so far offered only questions. When investigators arrived, the car's condition was immediately puzzling. It appeared orderly and intact, with a DVD player visible inside. Yet several of Jennifer's personal items, including her purse, keys, iPod, and both her work and personal cell phones, were missing. There were no overt signs of theft or a violent struggle inside. The vehicle had been backed into the parking spot neatly, as if someone had taken care to leave it presentable. Yet the overall scene suggested a deliberate, controlled act. Police began a detailed forensic examination. Fingerprints were limited. The only identifiable print belonged to Jennifer herself. Canine units were brought in and successfully traced a scent from the Malibu back toward her condominium, indicating she had recently been near or in the vehicle. The hood of the car revealed the most subtle yet significant clue. Latent prints suggested that someone may have been pushed against the front, a sign of a potential physical confrontation. Investigators considered this evidence a strong indication that Jennifer's disappearance involved foul play rather than a voluntary departure. The choice of location for the car added another layer of mystery. Huntington on the Green had a higher reported crime rate compared to the upscale Mosaic at Millennia Complex, but the Malibu was parked in a manner that made it visible to residents, yet offered little insight into the person who abandoned it. Was this the calculated move of someone familiar with Jennifer's routine, or a random act by an opportunistic abductor? The answers were unclear, but one thing was certain. The car's discovery confirmed the family's fears that Jennifer had been forcibly taken. The importance of this discovery extended beyond the physical clues. Surveillance cameras at the Huntington on the Green complex offered the possibility of capturing a suspect on tape. This footage, which investigators would later analyze exhaustively, became the centerpiece of the case. The grainy images promised a glimpse of the individual responsible, an individual who, in an almost cinematic twist of fate, would remain entirely unidentifiable despite being caught in the act. The car's discovery transformed the investigation from a search for a missing person into a full-scale criminal investigation. Every detail, the condition of the vehicle, the location, and the subtle signs of struggle, was dissected by law enforcement. At the same time, it intensified the Kesse family's efforts, fueling renewed media attention and public interest. Suddenly, the case was no longer just a mysterious disappearance. It had tangible evidence pointing to an unknown perpetrator and a trail that might eventually lead to answers. After the discovery of Jennifer Kesse's car at Huntington on the Green, investigators immediately turned to the complex's security cameras, hoping to catch a glimpse of the person responsible. The footage, recorded on Tuesday, January 24th, 2006, would become the most crucial and frustrating clue in the investigation. What the cameras captured was both tantalizing and maddeningly incomplete. The individual who parked Jennifer's black Chevrolet Malibu was visible for a brief moment, yet remained entirely unidentifiable. Around noon, the surveillance shows the black Malibu arriving in the parking lot. The driver pulls into the space, backs the vehicle neatly into the designated spot, and sits inside for nearly 30 seconds. Time that investigators later theorized could have been used to wipe fingerprints and remove any evidence of contact. Then the driver exits the car, closes the door, and begins walking along a nearby fence line. From start to finish, the movements are calm, measured, and deliberate. The person does not appear rushed, does not look over their shoulder, and shows no obvious signs of alarm. The camera angle, however, provides a cruel twist. As the person walks along the fence, vertical posts perfectly block the view of their face from start to finish. Despite being caught on tape, the person remains a shadowy figure, a phantom in motion. Investigators have referred to this individual as the person of interest, or POI, a figure who has been endlessly scrutinized by law enforcement, private investigators, and amateur sleuths alike. Attempts to enhance the video with technology over the years have provided no conclusive identity, though analysts have noted certain details. The figure appears stocky, between 5'3" and 5'5" in height, wearing indeterminate light-colored clothing and walking with a steady, unhurried gait. The subtle clues in the footage have been dissected repeatedly. The calmness of the individual's demeanor suggests confidence, as if they believed they would not be identified. The way the car was parked, and the apparent effort to leave no evidence behind, points to someone methodical. Experts in gait analysis and behavioral profiling have studied the figure, trying to infer age, gender, or occupation, but the low resolution and obstructed view have made definitive conclusions impossible. Despite its frustrations, the footage provided hope. It confirmed that Jennifer's car was moved deliberately, likely by the same person responsible for her disappearance. The image became symbolic. A person captured in the act, yet invisible. A haunting representation of a crime that has confounded investigators for years. Drew Kesse, Jennifer's father, has called this person the luckiest criminal alive, emphasizing the frustrating irony that someone could be so clearly on camera, yet completely untraceable. The video also intensified public attention on the case. Media outlets circulated the images and descriptions widely, drawing scrutiny from experts and amateur investigators alike. Over the years, advancements in AI and forensic video analysis have offered new hope. Analysts continue to attempt enhancement of the footage, hoping to extract even the smallest detail. Whether the way the individual holds their hands, the pattern of clothing folds, or the rhythm of their steps. Every nuance could hold the key to identifying the person responsible. With Jennifer Kesse's car found and the person of interest captured on camera, the case became a fertile ground for theories. Investigators, the Kesse family, and amateur sleuths have examined every detail in an attempt to understand what could have happened on the morning of Tuesday, January the 24th, 2006. Over the years, 3 main categories of theories have emerged, each attempting to make sense of the puzzling evidence. The first theory centers on the construction workers and laborers at the Mosaic at Millennia complex. At the time of Jennifer's disappearance, the site was partially under construction and a transient workforce of temporary employees, including some undocumented laborers, was present. Reports from residents indicated that some women had felt uneasy due to catcalling and unwanted attention from certain workers. Proponents of this theory suggest that Jennifer may have been targeted as she walked to her car, possibly ambushed by someone who knew her routine. The placement of her car at Huntington on the Green, slightly removed from her home, could indicate an attempt to obscure the perpetrator's identity or delay discovery. The physical evidence on the hood of the car lends weight to this idea, suggesting a confrontation occurred in the parking lot itself. The second theory considers a more calculated abduction by someone who had studied Jennifer's habits. Jennifer was known for her predictability, calling her family, sticking to routines, and living in a complex with limited entrances. A person who knew her movements could have waited for the precise moment she left her condo to commit the crime. This scenario aligns with the minimal signs of struggle inside her apartment and the controlled manner in which the car was parked. The calm demeanor of the individual in the surveillance footage also fits the profile of someone who planned the act carefully. Such a theory raises the possibility of a stalker or someone with a personal connection, yet no clear evidence has ever emerged to confirm this angle. The third theory suggests a random, opportunistic crime. This theory posits that Jennifer might have simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. A passerby or unknown individual could have seized an unexpected opportunity to take control of the situation. The absence of a struggle in her condo, combined with the deliberate parking of the car, might indicate that the abduction was both swift and organized, yet without prior targeting. While some investigators consider this less likely due to the level of planning implied by the person of interest's calm actions, it remains a possibility. Beyond these main theories, investigators have explored various alternative explanations. Could Jennifer have been taken out of the state or even the country shortly after her disappearance? Were there additional individuals involved whose presence left no trace? Every new lead or tip has been scrutinized, yet the absence of her physical presence continues to confound authorities. Each theory reflects the complexity of the case. A meticulous young woman disappears from a secure environment. A black Chevrolet Malibu is relocated by a shadowy figure whose face is obscured. And no witnesses or concrete evidence fully explain the events. For nearly 2 decades, speculation has filled the gaps left by missing facts. Yet despite differing opinions, all theories converge on a chilling reality. Jennifer Kesse's disappearance was not random, nor was it something she orchestrated herself. The person who drove her car and vanished without a trace remains central to every scenario. The persistent mystery of what truly happened continues to fuel both official and private investigations. Every theory is a piece of a puzzle that has yet to be completed, leaving families, authorities, and the public with more questions than answers. From the moment Jennifer Kesse was reported missing, her parents, Drew and Joyce Kesse, became the driving force behind the search for answers. Their dedication has spanned nearly 2 decades, reflecting a rare combination of resilience, strategy, and unwavering love. For the Kesses, accepting uncertainty was never an option. They turned grief into action, refusing to let the passage of time dim the pursuit of truth. In the early days, frustration with the Orlando Police Department's initial response weighed heavily on the family. The Kesses have consistently pointed out critical mistakes made during the first 48 hours, from the dismissive remarks of an initial responding officer to the failure to secure Jennifer's condo immediately as a potential crime scene. Every hour of delay potentially compromised evidence, a reality that haunted them from the very beginning. Refusing to wait passively, the Kesses took matters into their own hands. They transformed Jennifer's condominium into a command center, coordinating thousands of volunteers who searched the surrounding area on foot, horseback, and in vehicles. The family worked closely with friends, neighbors, and colleagues to distribute flyers, canvass the neighborhoods, and expand the search perimeter beyond anything the official investigation had attempted at the time. Their efforts were relentless, a full-scale campaign driven by hope and desperation. Their advocacy extended beyond searches. Over the years, the Kesses became vocal in the media, appearing on news programs to plead for information, raise awareness, and keep Jennifer's face in the public eye. Their persistence contributed to widespread recognition of the case, ensuring that it did not fade into obscurity. In 2018, the family took an extraordinary step. They filed a lawsuit against the Orlando Police Department. Their aim was not financial gain, but access to the complete, unredacted case files. This included over 16,000 pages of reports, interviews, and photographs. By gaining access to these documents, they hoped that fresh eyes might uncover leads previously overlooked. The legal battle was arduous, but ultimately, they succeeded. With the case files in hand, the Kesses assembled their own team of private investigators. This team worked alongside the official investigation, combing through evidence, revisiting interviews, and pursuing new leads. The combination of family-driven investigation and law enforcement efforts kept the case active and maintained public awareness. Their advocacy also had legislative impact. The Kesse family played a pivotal role in the passage of the Jennifer Kesse and Tiffany Sessions Missing Person Act in Florida. This law requires law enforcement to follow standardized procedures in handling missing person cases, aiming to prevent mistakes that can hinder investigations in the critical early hours. In December 2022, their perseverance achieved a significant milestone. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement officially took over the case, transferring it from the Orlando Police Department's cold case unit. For the Kesses, this marked a turning point, a renewed focus, fresh investigative techniques, and hope that the decades-long wait for answers was approaching an end. Since the transfer, the FDLE has conducted over 115 new interviews, re-examined tens of thousands of documents, and retested evidence using modern forensic technologies. Importantly, new DNA evidence was discovered from items that had never been analyzed before. Investigators have also narrowed the list of persons of interest to a very short list, providing tangible progress in a case that had long been stalled. Drew Kesse has publicly expressed gratitude for the FDLE's involvement, noting that the family feels the investigation now has a focused direction. The fight has been exhausting, but every breakthrough validates nearly 20 years of persistence. The Kesses' tireless advocacy underscores a powerful truth. Even in cases that seem hopeless, relentless determination can shift the course of an investigation. Jennifer's story is a reminder that families can be critical partners in solving mysteries. The Kesses' advocacy not only advances the search for their daughter, but has also influenced broader practices in handling missing person investigations across Florida. Their fight has been, in every sense, a testament to the enduring power of love, perseverance, and hope. For nearly 20 years, the disappearance of Jennifer Kesse has remained one of Florida's most confounding unsolved mysteries. A young woman with a bright future, a loving family, and a carefully structured life simply vanished on a January morning in 2006. Her disappearance left an unfillable void, not only for her family, but for the broader community that followed her story with growing concern and empathy. The puzzle of Jennifer Kesse's vanishing is defined by stark contrasts. Her condominium was secure, orderly, and undisturbed, yet outside, her car tells a story of a possible struggle and a mysterious relocation. Surveillance footage captures a person of interest walking calmly away from her vehicle, yet their face remains completely obscured. These contradictions have fueled decades of speculation, analysis, and investigation. Every clue, however small, has become a potential key to solving the case. The Kesse family's relentless efforts have kept the case in the public eye and have been critical in driving renewed investigative energy. Their advocacy led to a legal battle that opened the complete, unredacted case file, allowed them to hire private investigators, and contributed to legislative change in Florida regarding missing person protocols. Their persistence also helped secure the transfer of the case to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in December 2022. Since that transfer, investigators have made measurable progress. Over 115 new interviews have been conducted, tens of thousands of documents have been re-examined, and previously untested evidence has now been subjected to modern forensic analysis, including DNA testing. Investigators have identified new leads and narrowed down the list of persons of interest to a very short list, signaling a renewed focus and hope in the investigation. Despite these advancements, Jennifer Kesse remains missing. The public's awareness remains a vital component of the case. The person seen on the surveillance footage could still be out there, and someone, somewhere, may hold the information that finally completes the puzzle. Even seemingly insignificant memories, observations, or connections could prove critical to solving the mystery. If you have any information related to Jennifer Kesse's disappearance, no matter how minor it may seem, you are urged to contact the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Anonymous tips can also be submitted through the official Find Jennifer Kesse website or the National Crime Line Network. Every lead matters. The case of Jennifer Kesse is more than a missing person investigation. It is a story about vigilance, advocacy, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. It is a reminder of the fragility of daily routines, the importance of awareness, and the power of persistence. The Kesse family's fight has demonstrated that even decades-old mysteries can gain new life through dedication, technology, and public engagement. As we close this deep dive into Jennifer Kesse's disappearance, the hope remains that the next chapter will bring answers, closure, and perhaps the justice her family has sought for nearly 20 years. Keeping her story alive not only honors Jennifer, but ensures that her case remains in the minds of those who may one day hold the key to solving it. The story is not over. Jennifer Kesse's disappearance continues to challenge investigators and inspire advocates. Every share, every tip, and every reminder that she is still missing strengthens the chance that justice and answers may finally be within reach.